All right, and welcome. In the continuation of our conversation with Joel Lacoursiere from Paradigm Ticket Defense, we're going to pick up where we left off last time, diving into the world of traffic cameras and their impact on Ontario's drivers. In episode 7, we explored the widespread installation of these vigilant eyes capturing speed and red light infractions. And while championing road safety is paramount, and we're all agreed that we want to reduce speeding and red light issues, there's a new concern that's emerging amongst the carrier community. Picture this: two vehicles side by side cruising through the same intersection at the exact same moment. One, a CVOR regulated vehicle, and the other, a personal vehicle. Both subsequently receive a ticket in the mail. But here's the twist. Only the CVOR regulated vehicle is penalized with demerit points, and at that, not to the driver, but to the CVOR holder. Equal justice for all has clearly fallen by the wayside on this particular matter. Political expediency, you say? Or perhaps some other reason? Well, you're going to be the one to decide. Please join us as we further explore the intricacies of this frustrating and unfair application of the Highway Traffic Act.
Well, good morning, Joel, and welcome to Compliance Clips. How are you doing today, sir?
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm doing well. It's a bright Monday. It's, December 18th. Here we are. There's still no snow outside, so we're doing okay here.
Isn't that the wildest part, eh? Isn't that wild? So,
I know.
Joel, you're with Paradigm Paralegal Services, a company that you own. So do us a favor and give our audience a quick little background of yourself and Paradigm, if you would, please.
Sure, absolutely. I appreciate, first off, thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to take up, a few minutes of your airtime here. It's always a pleasure dealing with you guys. It's always entertaining. And at the end of the day, we learn things. So it's nice to be part of this circle. I really appreciate the invite today. My name is Joel Lacoursiere, and yes, I do own a company called Paradigm Ticket Defense. I specialize in CVOR defense. And
so Joel, I remember when this was conceptually introduced probably about 10 years ago. I was still heavily invested in the carrier community, and I was in the OTA safety group session there, and we talked about the AMPS aspect of it, where you're getting the fine just as a result of the event occurring, as opposed to the charges, so the CVOR points. And the concern that we raised at that time with respect to the CVOR points is essentially you're being found guilty without the right to challenge the accuracy or the validity of the charge. And we understand that, okay, we've got a picture of you here in this intersection with this license plate going too fast or running the red light. But I mean, you're talking about a calibration level to 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers. I mean, it's quite possible that the difference between what a vehicle's speedometer is calibrated to and the light camera is calibrated to are different, right? I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of vehicles that are made. I mean, there's going to be variances. There's going to be variances just based on the size of your tires and the wear.
That's right.
So where is it that the MTO gets the authority to assign a demerit point in the absence of you having the opportunity to challenge the validity of it?
Well, that's a great question. And I think, Rick, what the bottom line is because of some landmarker cases. I mean, the most important one, or the most one that's omnipresent, is the Humboldt accident. Since those sorts of things were happening, and the government had kind of a realization that there's a lot of new drivers on the road, it kind of empowered the MTO to kind of do what they. I mean, at the end of the day, the MTO is there for road safety, as are the OPP or municipal police departments. It's there to educate. It's also there to enforce what they consider to be something that could lead to something greater. So they have an onus to keep the public safe. And with that, there's almost like an inherent, unchallengeable ability to pass these laws and always kind of stick it under the guise of the banner of it's for road safety. And their argument is not a difficult one to make. It was the assignment of CVOR points that I think had a lot of carriers and a lot of
Yes,
legal
exactly.
practitioners up in arms, but they have that ability because the court has endorsed for example, when an officer is running radar or laser, all devices in the province are calibrated to +1 km an hour. And then it also requires, of course, the officer testimony to say that the device was tested as per manufacturer's specifications. And that will always come out in any evidence that an officer gives. Because the MTO is able to assign points, the cameras that they're using and the equipment that they're using has been court endorsed and government tested to specifications that have taken away pretty much any legal defense to it. And the only question we can ever really, the only angle we ever really have is the calibration and the qualification of the calibration, which is always going to be included, or has been up until this point, in any documentary evidence that the prosecutor would be relying upon if you ran a trial. On the other side of this is trial time is trial time. And even though there's not an officer that testifies, even the simplest equipment related testimony for a prosecutor is going to generally take about 20 minutes of court time. So there's been a couple of municipalities which have allowed amendments to the speed, not when it comes to camera. Their hands are kind of tied there. There's no other offense that's related that we can amend it to that's going to involve lesser points, because all light infractions, for the most part, they're going to have 3 to 5 CVOR points. But no court in the province that I've dealt with has allowed an amendment. With speed, I've been able to get the speed reduced from 5 CVOR points down to 2 or 3, because at the end of the day, when it's a municipal laid ticket, they get all the revenue from it, as opposed to when a police officer writes a Part 1 or a Part 3, there's a revenue share between the province, the municipality, and any other administrative fees that go along with it. So their slice is much different. But there is a willingness to work with certain municipalities on these tickets to put money in their coffers, and for a higher fine, they'll amend it, or sometimes it's just a lower fine, but there's no challenge of 20 minutes of valuable court time being lost in that. Because at the end of the day, court time has become more valuable than ever with all the court shortages that are happening with justice of the peace, etc. That there is some flex in certain municipalities. It's not across the board, but yes, when it's evidence that's relying on a machine, they do have to supply all the calibration details. And I have not had a case that has not had it in what would satisfy most courts at trial.
So, I can see the speeding one. As I say, there's the opportunity to consider, particularly with large vehicles in higher speed zones, whether or not the size of the tires and the wear has contributed to the difference in what's on the speedometer in the vehicle versus the travel speed and what's pictured at. But as I listen to the conversation on red light cameras, there's one particular intersection that in my prior life comes to mind. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the intersection in Cambridge where everything comes together, and it's a massive intersection between Highway 24 and Highway Main Street. That intersection is very wide, and I used to drive through that intersection on a regular basis going to work. And the yellow light on that intersection was too short, because I had the yellow light hit me when I was essentially just entering the intersection, so 0 warning, and that light went red before I got through the intersection. Now, in speaking with some other paralegals in the past about this particular situation, I understand that there is a standard to which must be met based on the speed limit about how long that yellow camera is in play. Have we ever seen, or is that potentially an opportunity for someone who's been provided a red light camera to challenge the charge?
Well, it's an interesting conversation, because I've had clients that are driving commercially that have called me saying, I just went through a red light camera and I saw a flash during nighttime hours, and they saw a flash, and no ticket has ever materialized. So what happens? Well, first and foremost, if you enter an intersection on an amber light, you're always going to have a wonderful chance at trial, because it's not illegal to enter an intersection from behind the white line on an amber light. You're going with the flow of traffic. You've made an educated guess that I can't safely stop here, and if I did, I'm going to land in the intersection and cause more trouble than I want. So when I've had probably half a dozen inquiries from a driver that's certain they just went through and they saw a flash, no ticket has ever materialized. So what happens, there still is somebody monitoring at the municipal level, whether it's done at a provincial level or I believe it's at the municipal level because that's where the evidence comes from. There still is somebody monitoring each situation to look at when did this vehicle enter the intersection? What color was the light? Just because we have a flash of them in the intersection, it doesn't mean the ticket's going to materialize. And they've obviously been weighted against what evidence they have. And it's in accordance with what we're speaking about right now, that it's not illegal to enter an intersection on an amber. And what's interesting is that it's always worked out to our favor because no tickets ever materialize.
Right.
So there is a system of mechanism that's being monitored by a human.
Okay.
That's going to safeguard against those things, because at the end of the day, they don't want to get a reputation for, you know, tickets that are unwarranted. There is a checkpoint, and I've never seen one that the driver was adamant that they were certain it wasn't calibrated properly or it didn't line up with the evidence that was received afterwards.
Cool.
So potentially worth looking at your dash cam video just in case.
Absolutely.
And if you cross that little white line and it was red, you're done. This is what you're telling us.
You got it. If you enter these cameras are set up so if you're entering that intersection from behind the white line and the cameras and it's the light is already cycled to red from amber, that's when you're going to get a snap of your photo, and that's when you can expect the mail within 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And as I found out with my experience, don't rush to pay that ticket, because I tried to pay it online, and I was getting very frustrated because it kept telling me the ticket is not in the system. The ticket is not in the system. And I called and she goes, oh yeah, no. She goes, darling, I loved how she spoke to me. She goes, darling, you're probably going to have to wait another week and a half yet. She goes, we're very slow at entering stuff in the system. So she goes, give it a good 15 days from the date you receive the ticket to go in and see if it's entered. And then if it's not there, wait a couple more days and it should be. And sure enough, it was. But yeah, it was kind of like, I just want to pay this, get out of the way.
Of course. And with all tickets, there's a bit of a delay in the reporting from the entering in the system. Certain municipalities are quicker, but that's true.
Yep.
No rush.
Yep. Exactly.
So our takeaways for our commercial carriers from this conversation is essentially you have the possibility of facing significant CVOR points for doing as little as 2 to 3 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit if you happen to be in one of those zones.
That's right.
And the importance of spotting the flashing walking hand as a precursor to the light turning yellow has certainly increased with respect to driver training and requirements. And you know, the rather laissez-faire attitude of, oh yeah, you know, it won't turn green until I'm all the way through is no longer applicable.
Right.
Yeah. So true. So true. Awesome, Joel. Thank you very much. This has been very informative, very educational and whatnot. And I'm sure that everybody that watches this is going to take something away from this. And this is a great video to be utilized for a training session with your drivers, people. So don't be afraid to download it and use it for free. So,
and gentlemen, I always think it's always fun with you guys. We always have one take and it's fun. We have some laughs going, and we get, hey, at the end of the day, we cover the topics and we do it in a great way. And Rick, you're not wrong that the airtime is mostly consumed by John on your end, but you know that going in, and you keep your questions wonderful as well. But I always appreciate you guys and the opportunity to do this, and wishing you and your family Merry Christmas and a wonderful 2024 up ahead.